Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another album review. And yes, I am going to do it. I'm going to talk about Roger Waters and his new version of Dark Side of the Moon Redux. Now, I'm going to be talking about the album and the music and the artist. So I know that the name Roger Waters conjures up lots of different things about his political views and everything. This is not about that. This is not a channel for that. I'm talking about the music, and I'm talking about Pink Floyd, and I'm talking about his new version of Dark Side of the Moon. And this is going to be like a Marmite album. I can already see, you've all seen, haven't you? All the reviews and video channels and Amazon reviews talking about this, people saying, what has he done? They hate it. Some people love it. So what do I think of it? I need to give you some background. This is Dark Side of the Moon. My original copy from 1973. So I had this at school. In fact, I was on holiday with my mum and dad, and I'd fallen off some rocks and sprained my ankle, and I think I was being pretty miserable about it. So they went to a record shop in Newquay and bought me this, because everyone at school was getting Dark Side of the Moon. Even people's mums and dads were buying Dark Side of the Moon to test out their stereos. Such was the reputation of this album. And it came with 2 posters. I'm telling you this so that you know how much this album has meant to me. It came with 2 posters, and I put my posters on the wall of my bedroom. Hence that this version of Dark Side of the Moon no longer has posters in it. All the stickers, because I stuck them on, I think, the front of my exercise books. Nowadays people collect them and keep them sealed, wouldn't they? Oh no, back then we just used posters and stickers. So, you know, this album, my original vinyl, means a lot to me, and I bought the 21st anniversary edition on CD, as you do. I also bought the SACD. I bought the 2011 remaster, and I bought the giant box with the marbles in as well. So my curiosity was going to get the better of me to know what this was going to be like. And so here it is. A very unsettling cover with the lyrics on the inside of the vinyl version. And the vinyl version is in glorious orange. I'm going to talk specifically about the vinyl version, especially when I come to side 4. And of course the CD version. And a lot of people in the Now Spinning Magazine Facebook group have been talking about this album. Lots of people have bought it, and it's been posted by lots of people, and I've not streamed it. I've not read anyone's comments. So this morning I decided it was time to put it on, and I played the CD version first. Not that you might think, well, does it make that much difference if you put the CD on the vinyl? It does, because of side 4, but I'll come to that. So it starts exactly the same way with the heartbeat. I'm pretty sure it does. But it starts, but the spoke, you know, that bit we used to turn up when we were young, those of you who were there, just to hear the swear words, to frighten your mum and dad. The words are different. I think the words are taken from the album Obscured by Clouds, 3/4, I think it is. But I will read a bit of this out, because you can imagine this is Roger Waters, can't you? The memories of a man in his old age are the deeds of a man in his prime. You shuffle in the gloom of a sick room and talk to yourself as you die. For life is short. Warm moment. Well, life is a short, warm moment, rather. And death is a long, cold rest. You get your chance to try in the twinkling of an eye. 80 years with luck, or even less. So you've got this kind of feel, and this has been tweaked by our Rog as he's done this. And then we move into Breathe, which is similar to the original. Now, as I go through this review, one thing I have to point out, well, there'll be a number of things, but this is one of the things I have to point out. If you've lived with an album for 50 years, and I know it really well, and somebody comes along and does another version of it, it's very, very difficult to listen objectively to the new version when you've got 5 decades of memories of the other one. But you've got to try. You've got to let go at the door of all your memories and preconceptions of what Dark Side of the Moon is all about, because that will help you a great deal. Otherwise, especially for the first side, confusion will reign. It really will. Breathe. The lyrics are slightly different. There are kind of like some strings on it. It's kind of spoken text. Roger Waters, a lot of the times on this new version, talks. They're like monologues. In fact, you start to think that you're listening to a Leonard Cohen album. That's actually quite a good comparison. If you like Leonard Cohen, imagine you're listening to Leonard Cohen, because there is his voice and the tone of it is actually like Leonard Cohen in many, many places. And so for the very beginning, it's got a lot of atmosphere, and I started to think, do you know what? I think this is going to be fine. Breathe, I was thinking, yeah, the lyrics work. He's tweaked them a bit, but it's okay. On the Run is very different. Yes, there are some little keyboard motifs that kind of remind you that this is On the Run. But again, remember what I said a few moments ago? Try and forget you've ever heard On the Run. But you can see how difficult this is. And there's a spoken monologue over this, what was an instrumental track. And it's very different. And I've put in brackets on my notes here, this is where people might struggle, because I started to at this point. Time comes up next. Lyrically, it's the same, but musically, it's very sparse. The vocals, again, are almost spoken. There's some keyboard taking the melody along. There's a cello. There's no guitar solo. This is very, very different. The overall feel is melancholy. What did I put here? It's low mood. I played it this morning. The clouds are kind of quite dull in the sky here, where I live in Cornwall, and Roger Waters talking in this kind of monotone, melancholy feel. It kind of like really pulls you back. There's a kind of sense of sadness in it, but I guess that the way he talks at the beginning, he's a man who's 80 this year, and you can feel he's almost like feeling he just wants to speak how he feels on this stuff. This drifts is a good word. This drifts into The Great Gig in the Sky, and let go of what you think that track is all about. Roger puts on the credits about the brilliance of people like Rick and David and Nick and the chords and the music they've written, but this is not that. The Claire Torrey kind of like vocal bit that we all know with The Great Gig in the Sky is played very gently by that melody is played very gently by the keyboards. And it's another written monologue. I'm not going to read these out because they're quite intense, they're long, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure, having the number of times I've listened to this, that I would actually completely understand what the hell's going on. But obviously, it's very meaningful to Roger, and no doubt with repeated listens, I think it will start to drop. There are clues given within the kind of credits and the story about what is going on here. It's very sparse. I put here. There's no female vocal. The keyboards follow the original a little bit, and then Money comes on, which follows the bass riff, and this is the one that was released as a single, which again I think a lot of people were quite surprised by, and I've waited till now to hear it for the first time. The lyrics are very different in places. There are strings. Again, it's a monologue, And I wrote down on my notes here that you really need to let go of anything, any preconceptions about what you think about Dark Side of the Moon. The other thing I'd like to say at this stage is that Sue, my wife, was listening as I was. And even though we've been married for over 30 years, that's still 20 years less that she's ever heard Dark Side of the Moon, okay? So until we met, I don't think she knew what it was. And a lot of times when I listen to Dark Side of the Moon, Susan in the room, so she doesn't know it as well as I do. So at this point, Sue said, "This is good. Is this Roger Waters?" I'm just putting that in there. So if you don't have the historical baggage, suitcases full of Dark Side of the Moon memories, you might sail through this and not really just think it's a kind of like a laid-back Leonard Cohen experimental work. Where those of you who are feeling lost in the wilderness at this point, you will start to feel yourself coming back in now. Because Us and Them is actually very good. It starts off with more kind of spoken monologue type words and lyrics and stuff. And then he starts to sing. And this is quite close to the original in the way that it's phrased to me. There's some lovely Hammond drifting underneath it. It's a gentle track. The lyrics are roughly the same. I think they are the same, actually. Some lovely just little guitar motifs and the string arrangements, the string quartet, where they were playing in the background, the cello and the violin. It's really good. I put on my notes that this is possibly was my favourite moment so far on the album. And this goes into Any Colour You Like. This has a spoken monologue, so it's not an instrumental that you might have known before, but it works really, really well. And it almost has a Doors vibe with the way that the keyboards are used here. Honestly, it sounds a bit like the Doors, and it works. It really, really works. And from there, it goes into Brain Damage, and this is sung. And again, this works really well. There's lots of kind of things going on in the background. There's a nice backing vocal that's kind of singing with him in the background, and there's cello as well and violin. And again, this really works, which of course leads into Eclipse. More spoken words, again repeated backing vocals in the background, and this works as well. So this segment of it is different to what you might know. Again, I know I keep telling you to let go, you've never heard it before, but if you can't, this bit you'll recognise, but you'll actually, I believe, because I did, I really started to enjoy this. It was a different thing. It was just a different way of experiencing this music and these songs. And again, hearing it through one of the guys that was the originators, the writers of the music, interpreted it all this time later. I think he says in the notes, I think if I can find it, so bear with it. I mean, because I think when he said he was going to do this, I think a lot of people thought he was a bit bonkers, wasn't he? And he played the rough mix, he says, to his daughter India and his youngest son Jack. He said a few weeks before it came out. And he said, "It's great, Dad. It's the 29-year-old you who wrote it and the 79-year-old you now, looking at each other over the intervening 50 years. And I think that's quite insightful to, I think, how you have to look at this. I think Roger's looking back to the man he was when he did this. He's looking back through the lens of time to what's going on in the world, what's going on in the world around us. And we all know, don't we, at the time of doing this review, that any of us had turned the news on, it's dark. And I think Roger coming up to the 80, I mean, all of us are aware of, if you've listened to this album for that amount of time, there's more time behind us than ahead of us. And what you see is going on in the world, and the us and them and these tracks. And, the tracks about money, the kind of cynicism that Roger's always had. And now he's thinking that so much hasn't changed. So I can understand how he's kind of wanted to revisit this. He's used it as a vehicle to put his own words and reinterpretations, and he's obviously felt he hasn't got what he obviously saw as not clutter, but having his own vision. There are moments, especially interpretation of side one, where I did wonder, would he have been better to have used all these monologues and all these new phrases and poetry and his vision and just called it something completely different? Because some of the parts, obviously on what was side one, are so different to what Dark Side of the Moon is, that I thought, well, he could have easily just said this, done this, over completely different backings. But of course, none of us, even Roger Waters, can escape from the world of marketing. And obviously redoing Dark Side of the Moon is going to mean that this is sold a hell of a lot more than if it was just called any of the lines that he said in his monologue as a new Roger Waters album. It wouldn't have done this. The curiosity and the sales would not have been what they are now. But having balanced that out, as I've said, when you move to what is side two, it works. And I love Dark Side of the Moon. I actually put in my notes, now is the time to go and put the real Dark Side of the Moon on. That's when I got to the end of side one, because I thought I'll need to play Dark Side of the Moon, the real version as I was calling it, as I got to that. But by the time I got to the end of the other side, or the extension, what was the rest of the album, I'd changed my mind. I thought, no, I'm pleased. I'm pleased I have this. And this is something that I think will give more with repeated listens. I think the monologues and the talking and the extra words will drift into my consciousness on a different level. So, of course, I still love the original version of Dark Side of the Moon. I'm not going to let go of that. But I do feel that this version will warrant many listens and I won't get tired of it. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Sue said at the end of it, she really, really enjoyed it. Which brings me at the end of this review to mention the vinyl version, because those of you who might be curious as you look at this in the shop will notice on the back cover that it has, side one is Speak to Me, Breathe, On the Run, Time. Side two is Great Gig in the Sky and Money. Side three is Us and Them, Any Colour You Like, Brain Damage and Eclipse. And side four just says it's called side four. So I thought, is side four like an etching or is it just blank? And I thought, I don't like these albums that have etchings, but no, there is something on it. It's not listed. It's not on the CD. It's about 20 minutes long. Probably don't get too excited. It just says it's called side four. And basically, I suppose I'd say Pink Floyd, once upon a time, were going to do something called Household Objects. It's kind of like that. It's Roger Waters talking really quietly, as if he's just put the tape recorder on. He's recording the ambient noise of what it must be like to live just on the outskirts of a city. So it's not in the city with like police sirens and cars, and it's somewhere you can imagine yourself being on the outside of Hampstead Heath if you lived in London, or somewhere a bit more not as rural as where I live, but you can hear dogs barking, you can hear an aeroplane going overhead, you can hear a train, you can hear him messing with the piano and doing strange sound effects, and you can hear crickets in the background. It's 20 minutes of an ambient recording with Roger in there somewhere. It's the kind of thing you would put on if you had friends around and see how long it was before someone said, "What is this?" And it's about 20 minutes long. Now, whether you'll put it on more than once, I don't know. You'll have to tell me. It's the kind of thing that might have been an outtake from Ummagumma, in a way. So it's got a Floydish kind of sense of play about it. Yeah, that's probably, yeah, I'm going to go with that. So that is my review of Dark Side of the Moon by Roger Waters, the Redux edition. Let me know what you think. And again, this is about the music, the musician, and the album. Okay? So thank you very much for being here. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. And this is certainly different. And let me know, as I said, what you think. Keep spinning those discs. Please subscribe. Tell your friends. Ring that little bell so you don't miss out on anything. Check out the website and the Facebook group if you'd like to join in with lots of other like-minded people. And I shall see you very, very soon.